everybody! Welcome to my channel. This is Makeup by Mackenzie, and I am Mackenzie, obviously. Today I'm going to try to recreate this look from Sister James Charles. It's a really cool kind of Coachella vibey makeup with some glitter freckles. The twist is, I'm not going to be using any of the products that James Charles used to make this look. I think this is a really good skill to learn, one, to save some money and not use all of the products that artists use, but then also so you can kind of figure out what colors go together and create your own looks with them. So this should be pretty fun. I'm going to have some fun trying to recreate this, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's play with some makeup, shall we? Alright, so James Charles used the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette for this, and I don't have the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette, but I do have the 35B palette and the 35O palette, which have some similar shades to the Jaclyn Hill palette. The only thing is that in the Morphe 35O palette, James Charles used one of the shades from here. So in keeping with my little challenge, I cannot use that one shade. So my face is already primed, already got foundation, already have concealer, my eyes are primed, and my eyebrows are on. So the first shade that James Charles used was Creamsicle from the Jaclyn Hill palette, which he described as a mac and cheesy type of shade. So that's like a light orange with some yellow undertones. So let me see. This is the orangiest shade in the palette, but I don't think it's quite mac and cheesy enough. It's a little too orange. So let me see what happens when I take this shade right here on my finger, and I'm gonna take this shade from the Morphe 35O palette, which has a yellowy undertone to it. And I'm just gonna combine the two. Let me see what happens if I swatch it right here. That looks pretty good to me. That looks really close to what James Charles used. Let me see if I can, yeah, right there. You see it? That looks pretty close to what he used. So let's do that. I'm going to take a fluffy brush, and I'm just going to dip it into that shade in the Morphe 35O palette. And then I'm going to take the Morphe 35B palette, and I'm going to use that shade there. Yeah, that looks pretty darn good. He uses windshield wiper motions in his eyelid, and then he just kind of starts to wing it out there on the outer corner. That's pretty good. So the next shade that he used is called Hunts, and he calls it orange, which it actually looks more red to me. This red from the Morphe 35B palette is a little too red. I think we want something a little bit more on the orangey side. So maybe I'm looking for something more like these two. So I'm going to start off with this shade right here. And I'm going to use that to deepen this up. Well, it certainly helped to deepen it up a bit, but I don't think it's quite where James had it. So I'm going to combine that same color with this red tone from the Morphe 35B palette. So that's a little bit better. That's a little bit more of what I was going for. The next shade James used was called Mocha, and he described it as a warm brown. Warm browns is exactly where the Morphe 35O palette really shines. And so this one to me looks to be the most similar to Jaclyn Hill's shade Mocha. So I'm going to take a slightly smaller fluffy brush, and I'm going to take that shade on it, and this is just going into the outer portion of the crease and onto the outer third of the lid. Okay, so now I'm going to take a clean brush, and I'm just going to blend out those edges a little bit. James takes the black shade from the palette, which I'm going to use this black from the Morphe 35B palette, and he takes a very, very small brush, and he just uses that a very tiny amount to deepen up the outer corner. And anytime you're using a really dark shade like black, start really small and just add little amounts until you get what you want. It is easier to add color than it is to take it away. So be very careful when you're using black. And feel free to switch up your brushes, like if you want to use a fluffy brush to kind of do a little bit more blending, feel free to do that. Use a smaller fluffy brush to kind of do a little bit more refined blending. So there we go, we have the creases. I think I put a little bit too much black on this side, but that's okay. You know, just blend it out as much as you can. This side looks pretty good to me, but hey, let's roll with it. The next thing that James Charles did was he took this shade from the Morphe 35O palette and applied it to his lid. And this is a reddish coppery brown shade, which looks like that. Since I'm not allowed to use this shade, I am going to try and recreate it. So what I have that I'm going to try to recreate it with is, this is a custom eyeshadow palette that I made from NYX. And there's this shade right here, which is called Liquid Gold. So it looks like that. And then I have this shade right here called Fireball. And I'm going to put them together. You see that? So those are pretty darn close. So James Charles uses this shade to kind of create a faux cut crease, where instead of putting concealer through in order to create a cut crease, he just uses this shade to kind of carve out the crease, as he says. So I'm just going to take some of Fireball onto my flat Morphe brush here, and then I'm going to take some of Liquid Gold. So the next thing that James Charles does is he uses a Stila liquid metal in the shade Rose Gold Retro, which you could use a glitter, but I don't have a glitter. So what do I do in this situation? Well, I can't replicate the same kind of shine that a glitter has, but I can kind of replicate the tone, and I can do something that will add a little bit more shine. So what I can do is I can take a rose gold highlight. This is the Maybelline Master Chrome in the shade Molten Rose Gold. I'm just going to take some of it on my finger here, and I'm just going to pat it over the top of where I put that lid shade down. So let's start with the lower lash line. In the lower lash line, James Charles starts with the shade Roxanne from the Jaclyn Hill palette, which is very similar. It's a burnt orangey shade, so I'm going to use this shade from the Morphe 35O palette. I'm just taking it on a Real Techniques smudger brush and just going to run that along the lower lash line here, making sure to connect that in with your wing hair. Alrighty, the next step in the lower lash line, James Charles takes the shade Central Park, which is slightly deeper than the previous brown shade that he had used. So I used this shade. So I'm going to go directly below, and I'm going to use this shade right here. And I'm just using a smaller Real Techniques smaller smudger brush for this step. And again, gonna go right along that lash line. So we're almost done. So the next thing he does is he takes a nude pencil and he puts it into the waterline of his lower lash line. So I'm going to use the Rimmel Scandaleyes Waterproof Kohl pencil in the shade Nude. I'm just gonna run that right in there. Be patient with yourself when you're doing anything in the waterline. It takes some practice. So James Charles then goes ahead and puts mascara on and then does lashes. And the lashes that he uses has a defined line. I don't really like to wear lashes, and I honestly don't think you need them. They do help to pull a look together at the end, but I find them to be really uncomfortable and kind of cumbersome. But I do think it does need a little bit of definition right here along the upper lash line. So I'm just going to take a angled brush and put a really thin black liner just like that. You see the difference? It's a really thin line, but it does kind of help to kind of make your eye pop against the really dramatic eye look. So now we're back on track, and James Charles uses the Benefit Roller Lash for his mascara. I am using the L'Oreal Voluminous Lash Paradise in Waterproof, and this is in the shade Black. I'm gonna go ahead and do that off camera, and I will be right back. Okay, mascara is done, and I'm really liking the way this is turning out. I think it looks a lot like what James did. So let's go ahead and complete the rest of the face, which he actually does this before he does his eyes, but that's not really the way I like to do it. I like to do my face last after I've done my eyes so that I can kind of pull everything together. So the first thing he does is he uses a buttload of bronzer, which makes sense for this look, and he uses the Benefit Hula bronzer. So I'm going to try out a new bronzer for me, which is the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer. A lot of makeup gurus really rave about this bronzer, so I feel like it's about time that I try it. The only reason I haven't tried it before now is that my normal Rimmel bronzer is $4 and this is $16. We'll see if this one's better. Maybe. So this is in the shade Light Bronzer. Alright, so here it is, not in its package. So that's what it looks like. It smells like coconut tropical scent, which is what everybody says about it, and it's a really nice smell, I must say. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my Farrah Large Angled Contour Brush. I'm just gonna swirl it around on. Okay, so I'm really liking this bronzer so far. It smells really good, first of all. Second of all, it's matte, so there isn't any shimmer to it, which I really like that in a bronzer, because if I want shimmer, I'll just add highlight. It's very buildable, like it's not too much at first, but if you want more, you can add more. So James Charles doesn't add any blush to this look, so I'm gonna make sure I blend it up to where that blush would normally be. Alright, so now that that's done, we're going to add highlight, which is fun. I really like highlight. So I'm going to take my handy dandy Carly Bible palette. I'm going to take the gold shade right here because James Charles used the Anastasia Beverly Hills Illuminating powder in the shade So Hollywood, which is described as true gold. So I'm going to use a gold highlighter. First I'm going to take the Real Techniques setting brush, which I really love for highlighting. And I'm going to take that. I'm just going to highlight the high points of my face here. Woo! Look at that highlight. Oh yeah, glowing to the gods. And then he does right above his eyebrow. And then he takes a smaller brush, which I'm going to use this real small Eco Tools brush, and he highlights his nose. So I just do right on the tip of the nose there, and then he goes up and he does just the bridge right there. Alright, so we're highlighted and we're looking good. So now he finishes off the look with some lipstick, and then we move on to the glitter Freckles. He uses a Ofra Cosmetics lipstick, and he does a very light nude shade. So I'm going to use the Maybelline Superstay Matte Ink in the shade Loyalist. Alright, so now for the glitter Freckles. So James Charles uses glitter tattoos that come from Mr. Kate, and so I'm going to use something a little bit different. I have a few different things I might try if the first one doesn't work out. The first thing I'm going to try is a metallic gold eyeliner to do these glitter Freckles one by one. So this is the NYX Metallic Eyeliner Waterproof, and this is in the shade Gold. Alright, so these aren't nearly vibrant enough as the ones that James Charles uses. So we're gonna try something else. I'm going to try using a gold lipstick, and this is the NYX Wicked Lippy in the shade Mischievous. And I'm going to take a very small synthetic brush, just like that, I'm gonna take some of it on there and we'll see how this goes. Okay, that's a little better. So you seeing those? They're a little bigger than the ones that James Charles has on his face, but I think they need to be big in order for them to kind of show up. So there we have our gold glitter freckles. So they're definitely bigger than the ones that James Charles had on his face, but I think it's a little bit harder to get such a fine little point. And he also had stars, which is a little bit unrealistic to want little tiny stars by hand. But these are still kind of cute in a very graphic sort of way. We can't forget the last step, which is setting spray. So I'm going to use the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Natural Finish Setting Spray. And then if we're recreating a James Charles look, we have to set our setting spray a la James Charles and use a fan. This is the finished look. I think it's really pretty, really cute. I love the freckles, even though these aren't exactly the way that James had them. They kind of add just a little bit of a cute, fun, flirty vibe. Overall, this is a really cool graphic look that James came up with. If you recreated this look, let me know. Share it with me on Instagram or Twitter or down in the comments. Did I get close to the look? Was I not close at all? Well, let me know what you think. I had a lot of fun doing this video and I hope you guys had a lot of fun watching it. Remember, makeup has no rules. They're more like guidelines. So, you do you, boo-boo. Alright, goodbye everybody. See you in the next one. A little bit of some to the shoulders here. Gorgeous. Yes! And warm browns is exactly where the Morphe. Okay, so the other side. The next thing he did. Gotta go. Come on, come out, please. Jeez, they really packed this in tight. They've got like the thing stuck in there. Jeez, this thing is in here. Come on. Got it. Nails here. Alright, she's gone. Highlight. I like me some highlight. Remember that scene from Princess Diaries where she's like, work it, girl.